Screw Ten Commandments, screw Exodus, gods and kings. Prince of Egypt is all the Exodus story will ever need. The Prince of Egypt, directed by Brenda Chapman, Steve Hinker and Simon Wells, and is the second feature-length animated movie from Dreamworks, as well as Dreamworks' take on the Exodus story, the story of Moses from the Bible that we all know and love. So the Prince of Egypt tells the story. It's the Exodus story just animated. It's the Exodus story just animated. The Jews, who were originally known as Hebrews back in ancient Egypt, were cruelly enslaved by the Egyptians, and the Pharaoh even gets the idea one day to commit a genocide on the Hebrews to prevent their numbers from growing. But luckily for our hero Moses, his mother saves his life by putting him in a basket, and the Queen of Egypt takes him in, and Moses is raised as the adoptive son of the Queen and Pharaoh, and the adoptive brother of Ramesses, the future Pharaoh. But once Moses discovers the truth that he's in fact of Hebrew origin, this forces him against his Egyptian family, and he retires from being the Prince of Egypt and embraces his true destiny of being God's chosen one to free and lead the Hebrews out of Egypt to the promised land. But since Ramesses is reluctant to let the Hebrews go, it turns into a bro war and a rivalry between the two once adoptive brothers who have now become arch enemies. And first things first, guys, happy 20th anniversary, Prince of Egypt, 1998 to 2018. This movie was released the year my sister was born, so it does feel personal to me in that sense, and 20 years later, this movie has aged infinitely better than most of DreamWorks' efforts. Prince of Egypt is one of my favourite animated movies of all freaking time, period. This is an epic masterpiece, and rarely have I seen any animated movie with this much love, care and passion put into it. DreamWorks, forget the boss, baby. We want more movies like this. We deserve more movies like this. Boy, do I have a long assembly line of praises to give this awesome masterpiece. So let's not waste any time and get right to them. The fact that DreamWorks would actually want to adaptate a Bible story, which aren't particularly kids' stories, into an animated family musical epic is a risky and ballsy idea, which pays off spectacularly. This movie is far and away the greatest adaptation of the Exodus story. It totally wipes the floor with inferior adaptations like Ten Commandments. No offense to Ten Commandments fans, still a great movie, but even it can't match Prince of Egypt, and certainly Exodus Gods and Kings, which sucked, by the way. And the movie succeeds highly in getting us to sympathise with the Hebrews. It never shies away from showing and being brutally honest about the brutality of how the Hebrew slaves were treated back then. They actually show the Hebrews being whipped and abused physically and verbally, and being forced to carry heavy loads on their backs, and it's freaking harrowing to watch by one of the finest casts assembled for an animated movie. Val Kilmer as Moses, Ralph Fiennes as Ramesses, Michelle Pfeiffer as Sephora, Sandra Bullock as Miriam, Jeff Goldblum as Aaron, Helen Mirren as the Queen, Patrick Stewart as Pharaoh Sessi, Steve Martin and Martin Short as Hotep and Hoy. But where Prince of Egypt succeeds over other versions is that it knows the driving force of the tragedy in this story is the rivalry between Moses and Ramesses, how they started out as best friends, as brothers, on their journey to becoming arch enemies. Since the movie actually shows Ramesses and Moses, bonding and getting along perfectly as adoptive brothers, and Moses having no idea that he's actually supposed to be on the side of the Hebrews at first. So once the truth is revealed to him, he never wants anything to do with his Egyptian family, and feels ashamed that he was a part of a family that's literally committed genocide and horrible crimes. So he finally is true to himself and does what's right for his people, and we can even see where Ramesses is coming from. Sure, he's still the villain and in the wrong, and he's a genocidal piece of shit that deserved all the punishment that he gets in this movie, but at least the movie shows that he is forced to live up to the extreme expectations from the pharaohs of the past, if not exceed them. I also love how the movie expresses how challenging this task is for Moses to just turn against his old family that he knew and loved from his childhood. No easy task, but he's got to do it for responsibility's sake. That would be like waking up and discovering one day that you're actually the adoptive son of Hitler, and you wouldn't want that would be like waking up one day and discovering you're the adoptive son of Hitler. That would hit you hard. And even though Ramesses is a genocidal piece of shit, he excels as a three-dimensional villain, since we can still see where he's coming from, since he's being forced to live up to the extreme expectations set by the past pharaohs, if not exceed them. So Moses' and Ramesses' rivalry, man, it gets intense. And Sephora, Moses' wife, she is wonderful. She starts out hating Moses since she's offered to him as a slave, but once he shows there's good in him and lets her go, and he discovers her family out in the desert, she begins to see the good in him, and they get married, and she even courageously accompanies Moses back to Egypt to protect and stand by her husband's side. And of Moses' two siblings, Miriam and Aaron, my favourite of the two is Miriam. It happens, Miriam, she stays hopeful throughout the journey, even when things look their bleakest. She keeps believing, as she encourages Moses to continue what he's rightfully doing. That's the overall message of this movie. Refuse to give in no matter what. Even if this movie isn't 100% accurate to the original Bible story, that isn't its purpose. It's as faithful as it can be, while also making improvements over the original story. Controversial and bold statements, I know, but I think when Moses kills a man in this version, he unintentionally pushes him over the scaffolding, whereas in the original story he strangled him with his bare hands. Would the actual Moses intentionally murder somebody like that? No. So in Prince of Egypt, it makes more sense. And the priests Hotep and Hoy do their job at keeping you amused as secondary antagonists, and they get little screen time, so thankfully they never disrupt the movie's tone. And the 10th and final plague, the death of the firstborn sequence, is chilling and horrific and ambitious. You wouldn't have a scene like that in an animated movie today. And the movie's musical score by Hans Zimmer and the musical numbers written by Steven Schwartz are magnificent. This movie would make a grand Broadway show indeed. How has this movie not gotten its own Broadway show like Lion King? In fact, it could easily be mistaken for a Disney movie since it's hand-drawn and has musical numbers, and it goes to show that DreamWorks are capable of living up to Disney and Pixar when they try. I mean, songs like Deliver Us and All I Ever Wanted Through Heaven's Eyes, Playing with the Big Boys Now, Are the Plagues, and my personal absolute favourites, When You Believe, are some of the greatest songs for an animated movie that's a rival Disney any day. And there's a beautiful version of When You Believe in the end credits sung by Whitney Houston. Finally, this movie is one of the most gorgeous looking animated movies I have ever seen in general. The combination of CGI and hand-drawn animation makes for the one of DreamWorks' most visually stunning movies, period. From the epic chariot race to the comforting burning bush to the devastating 10 plagues, and my personal favourite moment in the entire movie, the passing of the Red Sea. That is a magical movie moment and masterful filmmaking on an unprecedented scale. That scene will leave you mind blown on its own. That sequence alone deserves its own rewards. As for negatives, thankfully I have none. The Prince of Egypt is overall a fucking amazing work of cinematic art, and what a sad thought that we may never receive a DreamWorks movie like Prince of Egypt again, or at least not for yet a while, since Jeffrey Katzenberg stated traditional animation at DreamWorks was dead after Sinbad Legend of the Seven Seas sadly bombed financially, unless Jeffrey changes his mind. Prince of Egypt is totally one of my top 5 favourite DreamWorks movies ever. You can tell that the team behind it puts their heart and soul in the making of this movie.
I give the Prince of Egypt 5 stars out of 5. Best movie ever.
DreamWorks don't make movies like this anymore. Well, I'm sure How to Train Your Dragon 3 next year will be epic. Well, I love you guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. And what do you think of Prince of Egypt? Please comment and let me know. Please like this video and subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter and on Google+ and on Instagram. And I'll see you all next time. And remember, movies are us. Bye, guys.